You're listening to Faces of Our Cities. I'm your host, Jesse. We're talking with Noelle McDonald. Noelle and I met, a few years ago. I guess you would describe her maybe as the boss of my boss, or maybe like the boss of my boss's boss. I'm not entirely sure back then. I just knew that getting to sit at a table for dinner with her, I had to be on my best behavior. We'll just put it that way. And I'm not entirely sure I was, because I'm not sure I cared that much back then. But I'm hoping Noelle doesn't have some terrible memory of me. I'm assuming not, because she's here chatting with me on the podcast. So I'm hoping I passed that test. I also feel like she wasn't thinking of it as a test back then. I was working at Aquin Studios back then at one of the accounts in Milwaukee, and I don't know, you were in town maybe for a day or two, and yeah, we got to meet. I remember we had dinner down by the lakefront in Milwaukee, and that was about it. We didn't really have any other reason to connect or chat. I think you're in charge of something completely different that didn't affect me. Maybe it did. I don't know, but that sounds about right? Does that sound right to you?
It does, yeah. I went to Milwaukee to talk about some tools implementation with the team, and tools implementation.
That's right. That was the beginning of RoboHead.
It was, yes. So
Yes.
I was doing some discovery for our team to understand how the Rockwell team would use the RoboHead tool, and I have to tell you, that's the only time I've been to Milwaukee, and I loved it. Like being able to go down on the waterfront, but it wasn't just about, like, it's such a beautiful city. It really, like, I need to go back. The night before, I got to go see Nico Case in concert. She just happened to be there, who I love. I don't know if that's an artist that you're familiar with.
I don't know who that is.
She's amazing. So that's how I started my trip, by going to a concert the night before I got to meet with the team. And then, man, we had such a collection of amazing, wonderful, just enjoyable, fun people at dinner that night. It was a highlight of my travels with Aquin. And it was a wonderful, meeting of the minds. All I really remember about that night is that we laughed a lot. And what more could you want from an evening with people that you're meeting for the first time, especially? Because I think 3 out of 4 of the people I was meeting for the first time, and it was such an enjoyable evening in a beautiful, beautiful location.
And that team, when I think about all of the places that I've worked and the teams that I've been a part of, that leadership team is easily one of my favorite groups of people.
Yeah.
For whether it was just a mixture of mutual respect for each other's skill sets, and we just never had any problem getting to know each other and getting to jive together. Right. And if you looked at us and you looked at us on paper, I think you would be like, no, wait, these people.
Yeah, how did these people fit, right?
There's Dane, there's Sean, there's Carrie, and I can't remember if Jillian was there or not.
Yeah,
but
she was.
Yeah, and it really was. It was I'm gosh, all those people for me are on my dream team. If ever I have the chance to build a team, I'm one day I'm gonna snipe all of them. Because it was just such a wonderful team to be a part of. And you're right, you could take us out for dinner and all you would do was laugh for hours. Yep. I was hoping that we could dive in a little bit to your background and your history, because when I look at your at least public profile on LinkedIn, it seems to me like there are these random gaps that there must be something bridging these, because how do you go from being a teacher to a creative copywriter, and then from a copywriter to managing a team at Microsoft, and then from managing this team at Microsoft to being a VP of one of the largest creative studios. It's just so
How
many
does
of these.
that
I'm like,
happen?
how many other jobs are in between these that she's not telling us about? But like, what's happening here? And I guess like first start with like teaching. Did you always want to be a teacher? And how did you make that move? Because you were only doing it for what, 3 years, I think?
4. Yeah.
4 years.
4 years. So I wanted to be a teacher. Like when I was a kid, I played school. Like I wanted to be a teacher. That is where I saw myself. I actually felt like, I don't know, people talk about their calling. Like I felt like teaching is a calling for me, not
Okay.
just a job. And, but when it came to like going to school, I was like, oh, but I also have this passion for music. So I started taking voice lessons when I was 10 and singing in choirs and solos and doing a lot of music. And so when I went to college, I was like, I want to be an opera singer. Like, wouldn't that be cool? I'm going to be a star. I'm going to be famous. It's going to be awesome.
I love that. I'm so glad
Right?
that like I hope
Well,
that
you know
is
what?
still on your to-do
When you're
list.
17, that seems like a completely reasonable dream. And I was a really big fish in a little pond growing up in Boise, Idaho. I was cream of the crop in Boise, Idaho, and then I went out in the world. And the thing about art is that you can create your art for your own joy and joy of the people around you, and that is enough reason for creating your art. But if you want to really make a living in your art, then you need to be like the top 1% of the top 1%.
Sure.
And I am in the top 5%. Like I'm good. I'm good. I'm in the top 5%. But I am not in the top 1% or the 1% of the 1% that's really going to make it and be great. You know what? And I feel like being self-aware is a really important attribute to have. And after 3 years in the vocal performance program, I realized that I was, okay, let's be honest. I was too lazy. So the other thing
says the VP of a gigantic company. Okay.
But I was too lazy for this. So this is the thing, like to really make it in the music business, like you have to be super competitive, driven, ready to practice all the time. And I was just like, oh, that is going to take all the joy out of the art for me. Like I will, like then it becomes work.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I don't think I'm competitive enough and like driven enough to do that. And realizing that about myself, I think was an important step in saying I can still perform, I can enjoy singing. So after that, I've been in, so when I returned to Boise, I was in the Boise Master Chorale, which is the musical group that sings with the Boise Philharmonic. And I was also in the Opera Idaho Chorus. So I was able to really, use my skills and talents in ways that brought joy to me, but didn't make me any money. So then I was like, well, what did I always want to do? And I was like, well, I don't want to, here's the funny thing though. I didn't want to be a music teacher because I don't know if you ever took music classes in like junior high and high school. Yeah. There's a lot of yelling.
Oh, really?
There's a lot of yelling. You have 60, 14
I feel like that's not how you learn art.
No, but like music teachers just have to yell a lot. And I was like, I don't think I can do that. But along the way in college, I had also gone on study abroad. So, and when I went on study abroad, I went to Vienna, which, as you may know, is a classical music capital of the world, right? And
I was kind of curious if that's why you chose Vienna for that reason. Okay.
Yes, and I studied with a vocal coach in Vienna. It's such an amazing experience, and I had started learning German before then. I had very rudimentary German. My vocal coach and we communicated with our eyes. It was not easy, but I still learned so much there, and improved my singing, and it was an amazing experience. So when I came back from that experience, that also was the eye-opening experience of, oh my gosh, what is this going to take? And I don't think I'm ready to do that. So I'm like, well, I'll just change my major to German. And then I was like, what do you do with a German major? And then I have to study German literature, and that just, for what? And then I realized, well, before I had this dream of being an opera singer, I wanted to be a teacher. And so I got my degree in English I had a minor in German and music, and then got my teaching certificate, and I taught English and German in
Oh,
in two different high schools. So in the same district, I started at one high school. They opened a new high school, and I moved to that new high school when they opened it, so that I could. They already had a German teacher at the initial school, so I was sort of like helping her, and then I was able to own the German program when I moved to schools. So, and so here I am teaching school, living my dream. It's great. Um, but I was so poor. Like, I was so poor.
And it was in Idaho, right? That you were teaching?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not
So,
assuming that like Idaho like pays poorly, but I'm assuming
well, I
it's
mean,
kind of
everyone
like
pays
the
poorly,
Midwest.
and it was,
Yeah.
it was. I'll just say that my tastes outspent my income.
you
I don't know
you
how to say
saw the
it.
finer things in life. You had a taste of what it was like in Vienna, in
You guys,
Switzerland, and you were
I
like,
wanted to drive a car that was less than 10 years old. That, like, really, I needed the
yeah,
finer
yeah.
things.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That is like one of the number one criteria of being a teacher. You have to have a 20-year-old car. I know
Right?
this. I have 4 sisters and a mom that was 20s. So like,
So, and I love teaching, but I did find that I was kind of getting in debt. And so, after my fourth year, I was like, well, I need to get like a really good summer job, like, or for the summer, I need a really good job that's going to earn me some money. And so I had a degree in English, and I had, when you're teaching, you also have to work towards a master's degree. And so I'd been working towards my master's degree in technical communications at the time. And so I was like, oh, I took some editing classes and some writing classes beyond what I'd taken for my undergraduate degree, and I've got some skills. I have some solid skills here. I'm going to see if I can peddle my skills to someone who will hire me for the 3 months of the summer and pay me enough to help me, take care of a little bit of this debt that I've gotten into. And so I started as an editor and then a copywriter working for a company that was later acquired by Aquint. So the company was called Saxon and Taylor, and they hired lots of writers and editors and designers and all of the things that we know that Aquint hires now, because same people, same thing. So so I got this job and I loved it. And I'm going to tell you one of my life hacks right now. I felt like I'd never done this. I'd never been a writer or editor in this kind of setting. And I actually read this later, but this was my philosophy. So Malcolm Gladwell talks about when he got his first job as a pizza delivery guy, and his friend told him that he needed to be the best pizza delivery guy, that he should come in early, stay late, offer to mop the floors, figure out how to be the best at everything he did there, and that if he took that attitude to things, he would always be successful. So when I started, I was like, what can I be an expert on that these people who all have more experience than me that I'm working with don't have? Like, what can I become an expert on? Well, they had started using a publishing program called FrameMaker, and it was very complex. And I studied the manual and I became an expert on the FrameMaker software in
Okay.
about 3 weeks.
Wow.
So within a month to 6 weeks, people were asking me questions on how to do things in FrameMaker. So then when I am getting close to the end of my 3 months of this temp job, the manager there comes to me and says, well, would you consider coming on full time?
We can't
And
live without you. You're the only one that read the manual.
Right? You're the only one that knows FrameMaker. We need you. You're our only hope, right? So, which was flattering. And I thought, well, as I've been an English teacher, one of the things that we talk about is really getting kids ready for real world scenarios. And I thought, well, if I just took a year to do this job, took a year off teaching to do this job, I would be like so much better at teaching kids about how they use the skills that they learn in English class in the real world, right? Like,
Sure.
oh, this might be a really good career move for me. So it was a really hard decision. And so I took over the weekend to think about it. And I thought, no, I think that this is a good idea. I'm going to do it for a year.
Was knowing that you could now buy a car that was less than 10 years old part of the decision-making factor? Okay. Just so that there's nothing wrong with us all being honest here.
It was like, they weren't offering me bank. They weren't offering me a ton of money, but it was about 30% more than I was making as a teacher.
Okay.
Which is enough to own a car that's less than 10 years old at the time.
At the time.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I think I can do this. So I took the plunge. I gave my notice at the school, said, don't forget my name because I'm going to be back next year and hopefully there's a place for me. Well, I found out I was kind of good at it, like really good at it. And I liked it a lot. And I got promoted in that first year. And then they asked me if I could take on some project management. And I found out I was really good at project management. And I had an amazing project manager that showed me the ropes and really trained me well. So then I got promoted to project management and got another raise. So now I'm making double what I had made as a teacher. Like within a year. I'm
2 cars.
And I was like,
we can have 2 cars.
I'm like, maybe I'll take 2 years off from teaching. And I've never been back.
Isn't it kind of nice that you get to like hit one of those dreams so early on in your career life,
yes.
right? That it's
and
like,
it was
oh,
amazing.
Yeah, that was good. Time to move on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now I basically stopped teaching. I'm doing really well at this job. And, you know, I really feel like my career has been a mixture of hard work and good luck. Like, honestly. And I think a lot of people will say that, right? You're like, okay, you started with writing and editing. Well, then I moved into project management. And then I had there was just this really interesting opportunity where they needed someone to kind of lead a program that we were doing with HP in Greeley, Colorado. And that engagement included like a whole team of people. So I'm still considered a project manager, but now I've got a whole team of people that I'm having to manage, and I'm having to manage a client relationship at HP now. So previous to that, I'd really been just kind of taking orders, like, this is what you need to produce and go produce it. And this is the timeline and this is what needs to be done. Well, now I'm working with the client, and I found that like, I'm a true extrovert, and being able to sit in meetings and hear about the vision for these projects and really understand their vision and then what part our team could take in helping realize that vision, that was really exciting to me. Like I just really got a lot of super positive energy from that and really thrived in that. And then, and I attribute this to like my studies in communications and writing, like you have to be able to then take the vision that you're hearing here and convert that to the vision that the team can see that they need to produce because they weren't in the room. And I found that I was pretty good at being able to do that. And so then I was more of like a program manager. And when that really blossomed, then they're like, well, we now have enough people. We think we need to open an office in Greeley. And I didn't want to move to Greeley. I didn't want to live in Greeley. So I was like, you need to find someone to do that for you then. So
yeah, sounds great. Good job.
I hired the person that could do that, went back to doing some project management in Boise, and then they asked me if I could help, that they were just having a hard time finding really good project managers in this space in their Seattle office, and could I move there? So then I went there, and it was a pretty small operation, but at some point they kind of put me in charge of the whole thing. And then
you're right. It's like hard work and luck. You're like, wait, what? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for the office.
I'm like, wait, I'm in charge. I'm in charge now. So, they put me in charge prematurely, I'm going to say. I was not ready. And I was miserable. Like I was legitimately miserable. Yeah. And
what do you, I'm curious, what do you think it was that you weren't ready for?
I wasn't ready for having hard conversations with people. Mm-hmm. Like I just wanted to be friends with everyone and have fun. And everybody just do good work, and so I don't have to have hard conversations. Please, can we just do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
So, and I also, and this, I think this is another life lesson. I consider myself a recovering perfectionist. There are people in my life who will tell you I'm not recovering enough, but, I also, like, I set really high standards for myself. One of the problems with that is that and unreasonably high standards for myself, like legitimately unreasonably high standards for my own work and what I would do, which that unreasonably high expectation can lead to overwork and burnout and a lot of really negative consequences. And while I was holding myself to unreasonable expectations, I was also trying to hold my team to unreasonable expectations. And in doing that, I wasn't gaining more respect from my teams. I was not getting any allegiance from them. Like people were just like, you're ridiculous. Bye-bye. Like, no, thank you. And I knew it wasn't working. And, you know, when you're miserable in your job, then you need to make a change. And, you know, I didn't have another job lined up, but I was ready to quit. And I'm really grateful for an amazing manager. I went to my manager and I said, I'm just going to be straight up with you. I'm miserable. I don't think this is working. I don't think this is the best thing for the team. And I need someone else to take this on. And if I totally understand if that means that I'm out of here, I will quit and go do something else. And this amazing manager was like, this is great that you came to me with this, because I was realizing I was going to need to have a conversation with you about performance in this role. You're bringing it to me first. We value the work and the contribution you make here, and I think we still have a place for you here. So we're going to put you back into the project management team, and you still have a job, and we'll hire someone else to manage the organization. And I was grateful that I had a job, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm just curious. Why not
Sure.
just like teach you how to overcome those issues or those problems that
Hmm.
you noticed you were having, or was it something that you had to learn
I
in a role in project management?
I um well, I think that I just felt like I was far enough in over my head that I needed to step back from that. I think if I had gone to my manager and said, I need more skills, I need you to help me get these skills, and I want to stay in this role, that she would have helped me do that as well. It was me saying, I do not want to be in this role anymore. I think at the time that I saw it as I've kind of wrecked this up enough that I'm not gonna be able to build it back with this team to something that can be great. Like I just didn't feel it. So so I took a step back. But after I took a step back, then I was like, I think that I do need to try something different. And then I applied for a job at Microsoft managing their team of readiness experts. So those are the folks that do all the training for the field at Microsoft. And Microsoft has amazing leadership training programs. And I got all the leadership training I needed while I was at Microsoft. So I'm there, I'm doing my job, doing a great job, excelling there, enjoying it. The same manager calls me up out of the blue, says, "Hey, I'd love to just chat with you." I'm like, oh,
Yeah, sure.
okay.
No one just chats anymore.
So, yeah. So we went to lunch and she's like, "Do you think?" And at this point, the company had been acquired by Aquent, so it was Aquent now. She's like, "Do you think you'd
Okay.
ever consider coming back?" And I was like, I mean, for the right offer, sure. And she said, "Well, we need someone to basically run the operations, not so different from the job that you stepped down from, but we do have a little more responsibility. Like we want to give you full responsibility for the P&L and for managing the team and, all the things." And having had the previous experience there, plus the training and experience that I got at Microsoft, I felt like at that point I was ready for that stronger leadership role. And it was interesting because it was managing the Seattle operations for the studios at that time, and it was probably 80% Microsoft, 20% other clients. They were really small, like Seattle Housing Authority. We wrote manuals for them. It was, small things. And then over time, I just took on more responsibility until here I am.
And so your role as VP at Aquin, is it still managing kind of that Pacific Northwest like group of accounts in studios, or what is the role now that you're in?
So I've actually been in a few different roles, and in that I have managed a group of agency clients, and then actually it might have been right before COVID, so like 3 years ago, I moved back into a role where I'm responsible for all things Microsoft. So I'm responsible for all of the products that we have at Aquint, and selling those at Microsoft. So Microsoft has become like $35 to $40 million account now.
Sure,
So I'm
sure.
responsible for that, and I work with the senior leadership team at Aquint. So
Got it.
um, and I'm actually in a dual role where I'm on the senior leadership team for the Aquint Enterprise Organization and Aquint Studios. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, so
And
that's
for
where it's
obviously those people listening, Aquin has a couple of different silos. That's not the
divisions.
right word.
Yeah,
I'm sure I would get, yeah, divisions.
yeah,
Which is what Noelle's referring to.
right.
Got it. I'm curious, what in the role that you're in right now, what's
Mm-hmm.
your favorite part of what you get to do?
Well, here's the funny thing. Still, my favorite part is sitting down with clients, understanding what is keeping them up at night, and how we can help solve the problems that keep them up at night. Like being able to sit in the room, understand their issues, and then see where Aquent can fit in helping them. I love that. So really that what I would call kind of solutions architecture. So
Yeah. Some people
determining,
call
and
that sales, I think.
I hate the idea of sales, but you're right. And it's funny because there was a point where they're like, "Do you want to just be sales?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. That's not me." Okay, Jesse.
Solutions architect.
Fine, it's sales. Fine. No lies detected. So, but
cool.
often it's saying, okay, it sounds like you need A, B, and C, and we can provide A. Like we don't just say we're going to solve all your problems. We really do have an area of expertise, and we're going to
Yeah.
say that's the area of expertise we're going to help you with, and then you need to find someone else to help with this, and if you get all that done, you're going to be golden. Everything's going to be golden.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I love that.
I think clients, I think, more and more appreciate that honesty too, because it's you find so many people that are just yes, we'll figure it out, yes, and that's super helpful at times, right? Because like if you're a one-man band and you've got this huge project, you're like, thank goodness somebody else will solve this problem so I can solve another one. But at a certain level, you're like, look, I just need to hire the best at X and the best at Y. I don't need you to be good at X and you and mediocre at Y. I need best at both. And changes
and
between
that's
organizations.
Exactly it. Yep. And we recognize what we're not good at as well as what we're good at.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing so much of your background and your history. I know that we dug so deep into your career path, and for me, it's really interesting. I'm sure the listeners will also find it really interesting. I guess the second part to this podcast is talking about some life hacks and some life cheat codes. Now, I'm gonna, if you will let me, I'm gonna push you first on a couple because I really want some free consultative advice in the disguised as a podcast. Not that I have a use for it at this moment, but I saw so many comments on your LinkedIn from people that you've managed recommending you as a people manager and just how good you are at managing people and managing teams, which is so funny because of like what happened at one point in your career, right?
Right.
So like when I heard that, I was like, this is so interesting. This is great. I want to know if you were mentoring a brand new manager, first time managing, what advice, like hard advice, would you give them to be a good manager?
So I think one of the first things I learned is that it's so important that you explain to people what outcome you want and let them find the path to that outcome. So I'm really smart, and of course I can figure out the best way to get to that outcome, and I can tell someone these are the 10 steps I want you to take to get to this. I can do that. But that like drives out all creativity, all personality, honestly. Like that just drives out so much of like the creativity that all of us bring to our lives and to our work. And when I realized that instead of telling them how to do something, that I told them the outcome that I wanted, that I suddenly had people doing things for me that were way beyond what I even asked. So when you tell them exactly what to do, you get exactly what you asked for. And when you tell people, like, I need this outcome, then you see them finding creative ways to solve problems and to really exceed those expectations in many ways that you will never see when you tell people how to do their job. So I think that's one of the first lessons that I learned. And then kind of the second thing, which goes hand in hand with that, is especially when people aren't meeting expectations, instead of just coming at them with what they're doing wrong, is really coming to a conversation with curiosity. And I think this is what I was really doing wrong when I was having a bad experience with it, where I wanted to just say, you're doing this wrong, straighten up and fly right, get it right. Next time, I'm sick of you messing up. That doesn't work with people. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that conversation. It's the most demoralizing and demotivating way. So when I started coming to these problems with curiosity, instead of thinking that I had an answer, and saying, hey, I've noticed that you seem to be struggling with this, or, over the last few months, I'm seeing a drop in the responsiveness that we usually see from you. I've always seen you as a person who is like really responsive. In the last couple of months, that's not happening anymore. Is there something going on? What's happening? What's causing that? Well, and then you have people that are like, oh, you noticed that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do have something going on. Or, hey, we talked about you doing this thing and you said you could do it, but it seems like you're struggling. Can you talk to me about that? Like, just opening the door. Can you talk to me about that? What's going on there? You find out what's really going on. You find people will tell you where they're struggling. They'll tell you, like, where they need more training. They'll tell you the things, and then you can provide the support that they need. You know what, though? Sometimes you find out that they really can't do what you've asked them to do. And those are situations where if they can't do what you've asked them to do, then you have to have the hard conversation. It's like, well, if this is a business need that I have to have someone that can do this, and we're determining together that you can't do that, then what is our path forward? And maybe the path forward is that you need to go find a place that needs the skill set that you have right now. You'll be happier and we'll be happier. But that's a good solution for us. So let's figure out a 2 to 3 week plan for transitioning. And when you have a conversation that leads with connection, honestly, when you are, and compassion. So I just really believe in connection and compassion. And I love people. And if I'm able to convey that in my conversations with people and my interactions with people, it's amazing what kind of results that I get in my organization. And I cannot recommend it enough. But at the end of the day, it's really leading with curiosity. That, I think, that's the magic. That's the secret sauce. Leading
I
with
love
curiosity.
that. I believe Ted Lasso would say something to the effect of be curious, not judgmental.
Oh, right. Throw my darts. I love that
Yeah,
scene.
exactly.
Yep.
Yes. But I'm so glad that I got that naturally out of you because, if Ted Lasso says it and you say it, I feel like it checks out.
Must be true.
And
yep.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that that managers that people can learn to be good managers, or like is there a very specific like soft skill that all managers naturally have and it just needs to either be developed, or do you think anyone could really truly learn to be a manager?
I think anyone can learn to be a manager. And so here's one thing, like I'm a true extrovert, and I enjoy conversations and things like that. Well, I have a very close coworker who is very introverted. Her approach then becomes very different from mine, but it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, she's looking for the same outcomes I am, but she takes a different path to that. She still, to be good at what she does, has to care about her people and her business. Like, you really do have to care. So, but I can't train you to care. Like, right? Like, I can't train you to care. You'd get to choose. But I think anyone can choose to care. Like, that shouldn't be a limiter for anyone. But I think that goes to, like, why would you want to be a manager in something that you don't care about anyway? right? So if you want to be a great manager, you need to be in a situation in a business that you can care about. So,
Yeah.
because you got to care.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wrapping up just that hard conversation piece, I think a lot of times, and you're the expert manager here, so you correct me if I'm wrong, but I oftentimes have always felt that those hard conversations need to be thought of not as a bad thing. Calling them hard conversations makes it
Right.
sound bad, but like that, oftentimes if that person hasn't like brought it to you first, they likely are feeling this. Most of us don't do a terrible job and think we did amazing. The majority of us,
Most
I
people,
think,
yes.
as a human being, like
Totally
we know
agree.
if we screwed up or if we're dropping the ball, and it
Mhm.
like it's just grinding us. And so I think oftentimes when a manager would come to me to have a hard conversation, it would actually make me feel like, oh my gosh, like this is, I didn't even think you cared about me. Like,
Right. And it kind of like takes the monkey off your back. It's like, okay, now we're sharing this burden. I'm not carrying it
yeah,
alone, right? Like we're sharing it.
absolutely,
Yes, that is so
absolutely.
true. Yes.
Absolutely, it's an opportunity to like actually be an amazing manager to bring those hard
Yeah.
conversations instead of avoid them.
Right. And there's a school of thought that calls it critical conversations, not hard conversations. I don't know.
All right,
I've called it
all right,
hard conversations because they're the ones that like you really do. The reason I call them hard conversations is because these are the conversations that I need to be much more thoughtful about. I can't just run in and ask a couple questions and hit the road. I can't be quick. I need to be very thoughtful and present with those conversations. So that's bringing my best self and a little more effort to those conversations so that because if you're having that and the person feels like you're distracted, that you're doing other things, that is not going to give you that same feeling of now we're sharing this burden and this person's going to help me. Right. So,
love that, love that. Thank you, thanks for sharing that. Any other life hacks? Do you have any random hobbies that you're or anything like that? Any non-work related life hacks?
okay, I'm going to tell you my marriage life hack.
Okay.
Hire the housekeeper.
Hey, that's a bachelor life hack, all right?
No,
And a
well,
married. Like that is
so
a total life, not just married.
here's the thing, like even if you think you can't really afford it, I'm going to say hire the housekeeper. I cannot tell you how many like just negative interactions that has completely erased from my marriage. Like I felt like a nag when I'm asking my husband's like, "No, I'll do my part," and then I'm having to ask him to do his part, and I feel like a nag, and I don't feel good about that. He doesn't feel. We hate it, and I'm like, "Oh, did you know that we could just outsource this?"
I think it's a lot easier to to do this than it used to be in the last like
Oh,
10
for
years.
sure.
More
Yeah.
someone who just wants to clean like one or two houses. They don't want to do
Mhm.
it full time. Like you can find a decent house
Right.
cleaner, right?
You know what else it's cheaper than?
Mm.
Couples therapy.
Yeah. Couples therapy, divorce lawyers, yeah,
Right?
lots of things.
So much cheaper.
Before you go to therapy, you hire a cleaning service.
Right?
Number one.
This might be your answer.
I like that. Okay. Yes, 100%. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Noelle, before I wrap things up, is
Yeah.
there anything else that you had on your list that you wanted to share? Any other work hacks or
I shared
life
way
hacks?
more than I had on my list, so
Okay,
I think
perfect.
we've covered stuff. But it has been such a treat to talk to you, Jesse. Again,
Oh my gosh.
it's just always fun, and
Thank
good
you.
to talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for your time today. And if you're watching this, and I think if you want to learn some other life hacks, I'm guessing Noelle might connect with you on LinkedIn. I don't know. I'm just
Sure.
saying that,
Link
hoping
with
for
me.
a nod, and just mention that you saw this and you need more life hacks or more manager hacks. And
Hit me
Michelle,
up.
or sorry, not Michelle, Noelle. Excuse me.
Yeah. That's right.
Did I say Michelle before?
No, that is the first time.
Okay, good.
It's
Okay,
all
good.
good.
I'm not sure where that
You've
came
done
from.
good.
Like mixing the L's and the M. Anyway, doesn't
It's
matter.
not the worst
All
thing
right.
I've been called. Just saying.
We're not digging into that one today. So, all right. Thanks so much, Noelle. Have a really great rest of your week.